This is the story of a giant ice age deer called Megaloceros. That's its scientific name, but in fact, it's a very famous animal in Ireland, a magnificent animal. You're talking about an animal the size of a horse with a very big antler span, the biggest antlers that have ever been seen on the planet. We've used bones from these collections to radiocarbon date a lot of animals, and particularly the giant deer. So we know from some of the older bones in the cave excavations in Ireland that giant deer were living in the landscape around 35 to 40,000 years ago. We also know that the majority of giant deer lived in a much later period, towards the end of the Ice Age. There was a period about 20,000 years ago, for example, when ice would have covered the whole of Ireland, except perhaps for some of our taller mountains that would sit up. The giant deer actually had very wide range of foodstuffs and would have included aquatic plants, rich, mineral-rich plants from lakes, but also vegetation, including grasses, but mostly browsing. So eating in areas like this sagebrush steppe. Sage plants and buttercup are common in this setting too today. Large herds of giant deer being very successful in maybe 14,000 years ago, and are magnificent things that take a great deal of nutrition. An adult male giant deer needs to grow about 40 kilos of solid bone every year in order to grow a full set of antlers. And it doesn't spend an entire 12 months doing that. It happens in a matter of 3 to 4 months, perhaps. To do that, they need really good vegetation. From one example of a giant deer jaw from Doggerland, that area between Britain and continental Europe that was exposed as land during parts of the Ice Age, the pollen grains and other plant fragments have been extracted from a giant deer tooth that show that sage and buttercup were a major part of that individual giant deer's diet.